We received some pretty interesting feedback when I went through some of the not so hot areas in the city of Toronto and different property types. Let's flip the script a little bit and go through the hottest areas still to this day in the city of Toronto when it comes to properties. And if you are looking in those areas, what that looks like for you if you're looking to buy specific property types in those locations. I'm Michael Ouzas. I'm a realtor here in Toronto. If you're ever curious what's been going on in Toronto real estate on the ground level, and we will break down some different areas in the city in this video, you can book a call with me directly in the link down below. And I've attached a link to the listed app, which goes directly along with my MLS and gives you real-time updates on things, pricing, and all that stuff. You can click that link in the description as well. It's really interesting to monitor the months of inventory for different areas in the city, as when I have buyers looking for those areas or sellers looking to sell in those areas, it really paints a picture on what properties are doing and what exactly we will be looking at when it comes to market conditions. When we're taking a look at these areas today, let's go through some of the hottest markets in the city, meaning the areas where if you are looking for a specific property type, properties are still competitive to this day, despite whatever's going on in different areas of the market. And we are going to use the June market stats for this video, and July's market stats should be out in about a week and a half or so. There is a long weekend, so that will delay when those numbers actually come out, but I don't think we'll see too much of a change between now and then. And just a reminder, anything 0 to 2 is seller's market territory of months of inventory, 3 to 5 balance market, and 6+ is a buyer's market. First up in the detached market, E06 at number 5, 1.92 months of inventory. So it's still a seller's market for E06. And that's a Toronto Hunt Club area east of Victoria Park. If we take a look at W02, always a hot area. This is High Park, Bloor West Village. Detached properties in this area do not come up very often. So that's why when they do come up, they generally get snapped up relatively quickly at all various price points. If we're looking at E05, that's just east of Baby Village, Warden, and Finch area. And then E01, Leslieville, this area always performs very, very actively for sellers, especially in the detached market. This is DVP to Coxwell and south of Bloor. And then number one of the hottest markets still to this day in Toronto, E02, the Beaches, 0.79 months of inventory. Really just aren't a lot of detached properties that come to market in this area. So when they do, and it's a very desirable area for families to live, just like something like Bloor West Village area, this area is under 1 month of inventory. So detached properties that do come up in E02, the Beaches, do perform very, very well in any market. Jumping over to semis, and semis we've been talking have been hot across the city all year, and this is no different. C07, this is north of the 401 between Bathurst and Yonge Street, 1 month of inventory in the semis. Next up, we have E11, which is also north of the 401, and this is on the border of Pickering, so also a very desirable area. We don't generally see a ton of semis in this area. And this one, C10, and there's not a ton of semis in this area, so that could be playing a big factor here. But when they do come up, are relatively affordable compared to the detached properties in this area. That's east of Yonge, north of St. Clair's. So it's a great area, close to transit, lots of stuff in the area. And CO3, Oakwood Vaughan, 0.75 months of inventory. This is Forest Hill, west of Avenue, south of Eglinton, east of Dufferin, and north of St. Clair. And number one, hottest semis, Leaside, 0.67 months of inventory. This is east of Bayview, north of DVP, very desirable area for families. And C11, 0.67 months of inventory. So any semis that do come up in these areas, still ultra competitive on the buyer side. If you are a buyer looking for these areas, expect to still be in competition, regardless of the market, especially seeing 1 month of inventory or less. Taking a look at townhouses, WO, this is a small pocket just north of the Queensway. We don't see a ton of townhouses in this area, so that could be playing a factor here as well. 1.5 months of inventory. And then E05, again at 1.5 months of inventory. This is north of the 401, south of Steeles, Victoria Park to Kennedy. W01, Roncy, 1 month of inventory. This is Rossvale, High Park, Swansea. This is a very desirable area. Not a ton of townhouses in this area. You'll typically find more semis and detached properties. Same story with E01, 0.86 months of inventory. So these two areas, W01, W02, E01, and E02, typically always remain competitive for townhouses, semis, and detached properties. They are highly, highly desirable areas in the city of Toronto, as they're basically just east and west of the downtown core. So easy access in, easy access out, and you're still close enough to get into the mix if you want to, but far enough out to have a little more of a family lifestyle if that's your thing. E10 is Morningside and Lawrence on the east side, 0.75 months of inventory for townhouses. Okay, let's talk condos, because condos last time had the highest months of inventory across the board, other than then Bridle Path, where Drake's house is, of course. But if we take a look at condos, there are still a few areas that remain relatively competitive on the months of inventory. 2.83, I'd argue, is still not ultra seller's market like some of the other categories, but just trending on the balanced territory mark. That's EO5. We'll start off there. EO5 is north of the 401, south of Steeles, Victoria to Kennedy, and C13 at 2.5. That's Don Mills and Lawrence area. E11 is north of the 401, which borders Pickering, and W09 is north of Eglinton over to the 401. EO3, and this is at 1.14 months of inventory, so it's the hottest market for condos across the city, and this is Danforth Village north of Bloor. What I did want to point out here is an area like EO3 really does not have a lot of condos. You're generally kind of more like Ronci, what I mentioned for the townhouses, more so semis and freehold properties up in that area. So given that there's not a ton of condos in that area, which are generally a little more affordable in that area, will be competitive because there's just not a ton on the market from an inventory standpoint. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these areas, and if anything really surprised you on some of the markets that are still very competitive in the city of Toronto, you can drop a comment down below anytime. I'm Ouzas. Thanks for watching.